Happening now. We want to welcome our viewers from across the United States and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room. Good morning, good day, good evening. This is EdTech Situation Room, episode number 355 on July 9th, 2025. My name is Jason Neiffer. I am the Executive Director of Montana Digital Academy, which is the state virtual school located on the beautiful University of Montana campus, located in Missoula, Montana. Join you tonight from the Neiffer Parental Unit at Great Falls, Montana, my hometown, just 4 blocks away from the high school I went to many years ago. And joining me tonight, as always, good evening, Dr. Wes Fryer. How are you tonight, sir?
Good evening, Jason. I am doing great, and happy July. I'm wishing that I was going to be joining you for the mountain moot. So it is, the Moodle environment has changed a bit in Montana, I guess. I know it has.
Yeah, it has, yeah. And in fact, the mood itself has kind of shifted to more of a kind of an ed tech focus. But really excited to join the folks there tomorrow, where I will be giving a after lunch keynote address called "A Cast of Thousands," redefining classroom expertise. Or I'm sorry, redefining the availability of expertise in an AI-driven world, where I'll be talking a little bit about what AI can do to help provide extraordinary opportunities for teachers and students to invite experts to their work. And so we'll hope that it's still an idea that's formulating a little bit. And as I will do, probably tweak those slides up until I say, hello, my name is Jason. But, we'll get that figured out. So, but I don't think we're here tonight to talk about my keynote address tomorrow. What are you doing here, Wes? What is this thing we're doing?
Well, we are here to talk about the tech news, as we have for 354 episodes, and we have scoured the internet and created a list of links that are categorized in several areas: AI with subcategories of chatbots and scraping ethics, social media, EdTech announcements from ISTE, which I'm real excited to hear about because I know that you just returned from ISTE in San Antonio, which is one of my favorite places. My wife's favorite city besides Santa Fe is pretty high up there too, but San Antonio she loves. And then security and our geeks of the week. So do you want to start with some ISTE reports, or where would you like to begin tonight?
Sure, yeah. I would say I was a last minute attendee to ISTE in that, it's something we do. It's been a while since I've got a presentation into the program, and certainly it's different than the good old days where you could just show up for a pre-conference and lay some wire. I remember I think it was the 2006 ISTE in San Diego where I signed up to help with the open source pavilion and laid wire and set up Ethernet for Linux boxes and the kind of geeky stuff that you can almost like a pickup gig at ISTE. It's certainly much more corporate now, but I have to say, with all honesty, it's probably the best ISTE I've been to, and there's a couple reasons for it that have to do with the way they set up the conference this year. First and foremost, I don't know the finances or the politics or anything behind the merging of the ASCD and ISTE, but the conference together was delightful. And I should be really clear that I sometimes am very hesitant to go to ISTE because it's just so large. I don't feel like I can get into the sessions I want to, and it just seems like a slog for several days. And it was huge, don't get me wrong, but they did some things that I think really made a ton of sense in regards to the user experience. I loved having the curriculum conference at the same time. In fact, I probably did about 50-50 curriculum and technology. In fact, I signed up through the ASCD website. So technically I was an ASCD attendee that was allowed access to ISTE, and then you could sign for ISTE and be allowed access to ASCD. It was all the same pass, all the same stuff. But I went to some delightful curriculum sessions, and when I got kind of teched out, which is very easy to do at ISTE,
Even for you, Jason.
Even for me, or even for Dr. Fryer, and to be clear, the first time Dr. Fryer and I ever met was at ISTE. So, we go back because of in part due to that conference. But I loved the curriculum sessions I went to. In fact, I had texted out. I went to a couple sessions that were just kind of conveniently located, which, in the last day or so of ISTE, you tend to you tend to get a little less ambitious about walking 3.5 miles to get to a session you really want to go to. But I ended up in a creativity session that involved hands-on paper, and I loved it. It was great. I was very thoughtful, thoughtfully presented. But I'll start off with that was really good. The second thing that ISTE's nailed that I don't recall them nailing any other time that I've been to ISTE is the wireless was amazing. And
Oh,
that's
good.
really important to the user experience. And, having been part of some conference administrations in the past, I know how hard it is to do that. And, we like to joke about, the nerds that show up for ISTE, but the people that go to ISTE, at least half of the people that go to ISTE, they're not bringing their laptop. They're bringing their laptop and their tablet and their 2 cell phones and maybe a second laptop. And if the wireless is bad, then they're all putting up hotspots, even though we're told not to, because you got to get in the internet because it's a tech conference, right? The wireless was perfect. It was universally fast, easy to access. That
Yay.
was a great user experience. And then I absolutely love the schedule because, and I don't know how long they've been doing this, and if this is a new phenomenon, then cheers to the people that run ISTE. But they had sessions every half hour, not every hour, and you could kind of get off on the half or the hour, right? Because the sessions were generally an hour long. And at first, I'm looking at this schedule, thinking, God, I'm going to miss a lot by doing this. To be honest, I didn't. In fact, if anything, it gave me an opportunity sometimes to show up a little early to a room, or I could be fashionably late to a session and catch the last part of it and go to the next one of them. I can't remember which year it was. I think it was ISTE 2016 in Atlanta, where it was just so large and the lines were so long, and there just wasn't any opportunity to see anything. And I didn't feel like that I had really picked up my time's worth in regards to sessions. I probably attended 12 sessions, maybe 13 over the 3 days I was there. I walked the vendor floor, which was as ridiculous as it always is. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vendor booths. But I just really enjoyed the conference, and there was dozens of people there that I knew were there that I would have loved to have seen, but as Wes knows, it's a big enough conference that's easy to not be found. And so, luckily, I had 2 of my wonderful colleagues with me, so I could talk to some people that I knew pretty well, and saw a lot of old friends just kind of passing by in the hall. But I was genuinely impressed with the conference this year, and I've been a little distraught in some previous ISTEs. I did stay off the vendor floor with the exception of 2 2-hour walks up and down the aisles to talk to some of our vendors and also make some relationships with new ones. But just a really well done. And so I don't know if Orlando in June, July is really where I want to be next year. That's a hot prospect, even though it was super warm in San Antonio. But really well done conference.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, crazy about all the flooding and stuff that just, it happened real proximate to you guys down there too. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there an EduBlogger presence and any kind of unconference vibe at all?
Not that I saw, but I also wasn't digging that closely, right? Like they had the app. I didn't go till Saturday night. I did go to a leadership forum on Sunday morning. That was pretty good. Saw a bunch of friends there. But I didn't see a whole lot there. I did do as Wes and I have done before. Like I would never go to one of the big keynote rooms. That's not my scene. They're always broadcasting those things live at little areas around the conference center. That was wonderful because I could sit in a comfortable seat and fill my water bottle and see the keynote without having to sit amongst a sea of people. So that was great. I did have a couple pickup conversations near those spots, which I think is also one of the benefits of not going to the actual room. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty fun event. I did bring back a little bit of news here. I will say that everyone in the EdTech world wants to make an announcement in or around ISTE, so it's not that unusual to see announcements there. But I did want to highlight 3 things from kind of major players there, because I think that's the stuff that I took away the most. The first one, and I just put the link to the Google blog in our link notes, edtechsr.com/links. And Google announced last week that they're gonna it doesn't roll off the tongue really well yet, but Gemini-in-Classroom is the name of their enhancement, which basically they're sticking Gemini tools directly in Google Classroom. And I have to say that this was both a very interesting, but also I not expected. This is a smart move on Google's part, but wasn't where I thought they were going. But basically now you can access kind of specialized Gemini-based tools in Google Classroom. And what it reminded me of the same tool sets that School AI, Magic School, EduAid, all the kind of major players in school artificial intelligence tools, are now offering, either for free with some vague maybe privacy, maybe not issue, or pro version, from anywhere from $50 to $150 a year. But I thought this was a brilliant chess move on the part of Google, because it provides a pretty robust set of tools. And I have to say that, it's probably still not my preferred go-to tool. I spent a lot of time in ChatGPT, but Gemini is an excellent large language model. And if I only had access to Gemini, I think I could do the vast majority, if not all, the things that I do typically with generative artificial intelligence with that. And I think that's a really great move on the part of Google. They did have a sign up so that you could get early access to it. I did sign up for that as part of my institution's Google piece, but not only will it be available to teachers with the same kind of enterprise industrial data privacy that Google promises schools, but Gemini will also be available in a restricted way through Google Classroom to students as well. So in my mind, I think that's a huge step forward in regards to access for students in schools. So enough about me. Comments on the Google announcement, sir.
So I put that link in the chat here, and then I put another link that I just actually saw from shared on LinkedIn, and it's maybe a broader post that's called ISTE 2025, Celebrating the Art of Teaching and the Science of Learning. And the thing that I noticed in your article was that, NotebookLM, as well as what they're calling GEMS, which are essentially activities like Flint. So as I've mentioned on the show, our school has licensed Flint AI for the past 2 years, I guess, or maybe is it just a year? Things have changed so fast, so quickly. And one of the things that has been so excellent about Flint is that all of the interactions that students have, and they call them activities, Google is calling them teacher-led gems, are all archived and shared. And so, I don't know, it's going to be interesting because our school leadership had asked us to only use Flint AI with students. And, if but we're a Google school and have access, to Google Apps and everything, but we don't use Google Classroom because we've actually fully transitioned to Canvas, which I love. We were doing double entry into the student information system. And if you were using Classroom, it's just kind of a crazy Wild West. And throw into that iPads, which I think Chromebooks or laptops are quite a bit easier actually to use with learning management systems. And I do love my iPad, and I love iPads, and I have for a long time, ever since they came out. But I think that they're actually the most challenging student device to have for a variety of reasons. So anyway, I'm definitely excited to see that what they call teacher-led NotebookLM in the classroom is right there. I'm going to be curious because if I have to have students in Google Classroom, then that's probably not going to work for me. And then, like I said, our school was licensing Flint, and requiring us to only use Flint with students. And so it's going to be really, really interesting. And of course, I did teach a couple high school classes last year, starting in February. But I'm expecting to be back to 4 middle school classes. And so with older students that are of age, it's going to be impossible to stop them from using these other AI tools on their own devices. And so it's just going to be really interesting. I really think that we need to be doing more professional development with AI tools. And I am enthusiastic about the ways in which these AI platforms supercharge our abilities as educators to what I would call design, create, and share. And that means being able to, take curricular goals, skills, things that we want to teach, and being able to create some customized resources. It's interesting to me that, as you mentioned, these other, tools that have been sold to schools that kind of Google, it's like that's the Sherlocking. The Apple Sherlock was like, taking in this third-party functionality and then just making it a default or making it a built-in within iOS or Mac OS or whatever. And so Google seems to be doing that too. But really, that's what a lot of those tools seem to me to be, is just like prompts. And it's something that you could do yourself with ChatGPT or Claude. But I guess it's sort of mainstreaming capabilities. And it is important to help, teachers and everyone gain awareness about what is possible. And a lot of the genius of these generative AI platforms is the fact that a simple chat interface is the interface. It's not, hey, start off with an HTML tag and make sure you have your semicolons and your brackets in the right place or whatever. It's just so approachable. I would recommend, if anybody's thinking about professional development, I would recommend inviting teachers who are early adapters and just have been users to share some of their success stories, share some of their use stories, and then do a little professional development around some prompt engineering. But then we're also going to be having to talk about assessment and how we should wisely think about not just sending students home with the same traditional assignment that they may have had for the last 10 or 20 years, and thinking about how we're going to craft new assignments for students. But wow, it is a bold and aggressive move by Google, but not necessarily a surprising one. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in our context. It looks like there's the Google for Education pilot program. So I'm going to guess maybe that my school doesn't sign up for that. And we probably blaze the trail, continue to work with Flint and go down that road. But it's it's going to be interesting. So I wonder if you're going to have some Montana schools jump in that pilot, or my perception is that in general, the pace of this change is very threatening and very difficult to, keep on top of yourself, much less think about how your organization, your institution is, quote unquote, keeping up. So what are your thoughts about the pilot program? And when you think about your program, you're a Canvas institution now too. So Canvas is really big as well. I wonder what their play is going to be in the AI space if other LMSs like Google Classroom, suddenly, have this.
Yeah, in fact, I went to a briefing at ISTE for Canvas administrators, and they do have some really interesting AI plays that are happening. And I think the one I'm most excited about, I think I'm under an NDA, so I'm not going to mention it for right now. But we've been talking to Canvas for the better part of a year, because we've been a Canvas institution for about 18 months now, and I think they're ahead of the curve in regards to what they want to do with AI, and I think all the stuff in 2 weeks from now, InstructureCon, which is their yearly conference, is just a hop, skip, and a jump from Missoula and Spokane this year. So we're going to actually drive over to Spokane with staff, since it'll be inexpensive for us to do so. But we're really excited the direction they're going into. But one of the things that limits us just a little bit in regards to our use of Google is that we don't give student accounts to students in our program, because every district would prefer that students use the local email available to them, and that also means we don't have to kind of jump through the hoops to to manage those email addresses.
Okay. Yeah, a
But the
whole
thing is,
host of different issues that you
yes,
can pass on to someone else.
yeah, and I'd also mention too that we people cared a lot less about this stuff 15 years ago when we started, right? But I think Google's making a really wise move here. And, and if I were a district administrator, well, let me put it this way. So, as I think I mentioned, Montana Digital Academy this month is opening up our Frontier Learning Lab, which is our lab for Montana schools to get professional learning and access to resources to help adopt edge technologies like artificial intelligence and extended reality, virtual reality. We're excited to get that started, but we think that the barrier to entry is decreased dramatically when some of these school-facing tools are easily turned on with a click of a switch with the same with the same data protection, enterprise data protection that is offered the Gemini tool. But Wes, I agree with you that I do think that for a certain subset of teachers, and I think a growing number of teachers, that access to the very powerful chatbot itself, assuming you can do things like upload documents and the the functionality that you're talking about with gems. Gem is like a chat. There's like a custom GPT when you're using it regularly with Gemini.
Yep.
The other thing they announced last week is those are going to be shareable within the next 3 weeks. And that's amazing because we our crafty staff over at the Digital Academy has been making some wonderful custom GPTs that we've been able to recreate in gems, but just can't share them, with our colleagues and the people we serve.
And if you create, that's been a while since I've looked at this, but when you create a custom GPT, do you have to be a paying user in order to utilize that, or can any free user use a custom GPT?
I'm so glad you asked that. Any free user can use a custom GPT, and not to mention one of the things that I get the control of, and we're in the middle of. We finally have ChatGPT licenses available to us as university employees at Montana Digital Academy. So members of our staff are going to have those enterprise licenses, but we're moving all of our GPTs, our custom GPTs that we developed for kind of wider distribution over to our new account setup. But one of the things you can do when you set up a custom GPT is that you can choose whether answers from anonymous or store users is used to train the model, and so you just turn that to no, and then it's gone. And that's what we've loved. We've shared our open MCQ has been used thousands of times in the last 6 months for people looking to write more nuanced, objective questions. And it's truly a wonderful thing to be able to share those pieces. And a lot of the school-facing AI tools, all offers useful but similar sets. What I think is really powerful about developing custom tools like a custom GPT or a gem is that you get so much more control to kind of stylize what you want the things to look like. Maybe you're not a project-based learning person, you're a problem-based learning person, which is a very narrow subset of project-based learning, right? It also has a 25 years of pedagogy behind it and a structure. So instead of just saying I want to develop a project with Gemini and go back and forth, you can give it all of the structure of a problem-based learning instead. And that's a better fit for getting those output pieces. But yeah, I think I'm really excited about it. And I really wish I were teaching right now in a district with the Google tools, because that NotebookLM plugin to Classroom, freaking fabulous.
Yeah. I probably mentioned this on the show, but as I was teaching AP Computer Science, which I just heard today that some AP scores, maybe all of them are out, but some of them are out, and I just emailed our folks to say, hey, do we have our scores we can look at? I had a student who had a concussion and was not able to look at her screen a lot, and based on her feedback, appreciated me being able to take videos with transcripts of videos and other kinds of documents and resources and slideshows, and throwing them into NotebookLM and saying, hey, I want a podcast with this. I don't know if we've mentioned it, but now the regular consumer NotebookLM, which I'm not paying for, I'm just using the free version, now lets you actually do either a standard default length, or you can do a short or a long one. I took a 54-page chat document that a friend had created recently in the podcast that Google's NotebookLM, sometimes I say Google LM, NotebookLM created. It was almost an hour. It was like 54 minutes, and it was incredible. And so unlike basically every other AI tool that I've used that has had some kind of hallucination issue, and please don't mishear me to say that, oh, it's perfect and it never makes a mistake. But I have not had personal experiences with hallucinations and really getting it wrong with NotebookLM in the way that I have with other tools. And I think that's because I'm giving it the documents, and it's coded to specifically draw on those documents. So as long as it's drawing from those documents when it's making these, not only summaries, but also extensions, because I'm using that customized prompt to have it, not usually summarize, but also go beyond just summarizing and take the analysis to another level. It is an absolute game changer. And I strongly encourage everyone listening to this podcast, if you have not personally used NotebookLM to take one or more documents and then ask it to make a deep dive podcast, do that, because everyone I've shared this with who's done that has been blown away by it. And, it just, we're all different. We have different schedules, but I consume a lot of audio. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I actually, for the next media education lab, we're going to tackle, we did surveillance. We're going to talk about AI searching in August. We do this the first Monday of every month. And I didn't locate a great podcast or video to be sort of an anchor media piece for people in advance to listen to. So I just took the 8 articles that I found, made PDFs of them all, put it in NotebookLM, and said, boom, here's a podcast, and shared that on YouTube. And that's the anchor piece. So I just can't emphasize enough how powerful that is. If there was just one tool that we were going to take into the next school year that could be transformative in a very positive way, it would be NotebookLM. That would be my vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Well, Wes, I can't believe that we've only been through 2 links so far, but
let me mention the ISTE one. This is interesting. You put the ISTE, or Apple skips ISTE, that's in the discussion forum. Would love any commentary you have about that. I became an Apple Distinguished Educator in 2005. I've been engaged with the Apple community intensively at different stages of life. I am planning and hopeful I should be able to re-up my ADE connection. You have to, have it, if you're new school or whatever, you got to sign forms and do some stuff. But I'm hopeful we have another, at least one other staff member I'm aware of now who is an Apple Distinguished Educator. And we have a big community of 2 million people in the greater Charlotte area. So we've got to have some ADEs around. But I am fascinated that Apple was not there. And I'm, if you've listened to the show at all, you probably know that Jason and I are both big time Apple fanboys. We love our Apple technology, and I love to teach with Apple technology, and I'm at an Apple school. So any thoughts about that? Because that's, I think it seems sad that they weren't there, because it's a really important constituency to try to influence.
Yeah, so I noticed they weren't there, and at first I just thought, because I missed them on the floor, there are literally many hundreds, if not thousands, of vendors that are on that ridiculous sized vendor floor, and I can't remember, was it David Jakes that called it a tractor show?
A boat show. That's Gary Steger.
Yes, and I guess maybe the Montana version of that is a tractor show. So it's a pretty apt description. I will say they did do, at the opening ceremonies of ISTE, they did kind of a big big show about, we've told our vendors that it has to be education, it can't just be sales. It was pretty salesy still, but it's a sales floor. I mean,
It's a
what?
sales floor. That's right. It's a vendor
Yeah,
floor. And
yeah.
Apple also, I didn't go to NC Ties, which is this past year, which is our North Carolina EdTech conference. I've been the last 2 years, and Apple's approach there had been to have a separate room where they did demos themselves and made contacts and connections. But
Well, when I first noticed that they weren't there, that I didn't seem to see them there, and I couldn't find them in the program, I ended up doing a little bit of a web search and found that there was a discussion about this on Apple forums, and other Apple distinguished educators like yourself, Wes, had said that they just decided not to do it this year. And I couldn't find the article again, but there was some reference to it in a kind of an education article about how they just didn't want to, they just didn't want to do the outdo everyone else show wars. Which I thought was pretty interesting too. I have no doubt that the community was well represented. I do think there was my understanding from the forums is there was a meetup, and the other Apple distinguished educators were able to get together. But it does go back to me that one thing I'm really excited about from Apple, that this is what I would want to ask them about, is apparently there's an Apple device coming out later this year that has an iPhone chip in it. It's their Chromebook competitor. And the reason why I'm so interested in this is because it's like the A17 or A18 chip, but it has an alternative metal case, is some of the rumors I've heard. It will run Mac OS. But more importantly, it has a 3-day battery life, which I don't believe, because that sounds like hyperbole. But when you consider if there's a big enough battery in the case, and you consider how battery sipping those A18 chips are in comparison to the desktop processors, and I think it was like the iPhone 8 or 9, or maybe the X, where I think I'm remembering Andy Anako from this week, MacBreak Weekly, talking about how the new chips were desktop class chips in the phones now. So that's very tempting to me, especially if they can get it in a small form factor like a 12-inch laptop. That would be super interesting to me. That's what I hope to talk about with Apple.
We've mentioned this, and I don't know if this was talked about at ISTE, but if Alphabet has to divest of Chrome, the Chrome browser, which is what the court decision has apparently been pushing, like, what the heck does that do to schools with Chromebooks? That is, I don't have those statistics, but I am fairly confident that well over half of all U.S. public schools that have devices in the hands of kids are using Chromebooks today. They're not using netbooks. Netbooks are dead. They're some of them using iPads. We're using iPads, first grade, I think, through 12th grade. I don't know. We're kind of ripe for something else, I think. I don't know. Chromebooks are so easy to manage. I have managed, all different kinds of devices as a tech director. So, if you were going to ask me today, what do you want to manage, Wes? I would say Chromebooks. There is absolutely no contest. And we've used Jamf and other kinds of MDM, mobile device managers. And it's just, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah. So the thing about Apple, their education involvement, and I go back way back with them, back to the days of the grants for middle schoolers in Texas. And, this is in the early 2000s. The ACOT research, the Apple Classrooms of Tomorrow. I don't know. I'm still upset that stuff just all got taken away. They had it offline. They had ACOT too, and then all of it was taken away. And I don't know. I have a perception, and I'd love to connect with Apple folks in the coming school year, and get this perception shaped by direct interaction with Apple folks. But it seems to me they've lost their way a bit with education, and it's just such a consumer society that the education focus, which they've historically had, has been diluted, and it just doesn't. I don't know, and I haven't been as active in the community for a number of years. So hopefully, being able to get more active in the community, I'll get some more insights into that. I do know that some of the most innovative teachers, and that you don't have to use Apple devices to be innovative, and I don't, by the way, think everybody needs to be. And I'm not that kind of a EdTech evangelist. I want to use powerful tools that work, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I love Chromebooks as a tech director and somebody who's managing devices, because they truly do empower learners, but they also facilitate the minutia of administrative management in so many great ways. So it'll be interesting to see what Apple has, and if you've got articles at some point, Jason, to share about that rumored Apple device, I would love to.
Yeah, the next time I see that, I'll throw it in the rundown. And just because we seem to be jumping down every non sequitur we can here, there's a new Chromebook out that I really, really, really.
I think you need it, because last time I checked your device count, it was shockingly low at home.
Yeah, so. it was certainly in the low 200s, but I'll throw the link here in chat. But Lenovo released a new Chromebook Plus a couple weeks ago, and I've seen some reviews on it. But I'm so tempted. It's the first ARM device that I know of that has 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I do think 16 gigabytes of RAM is important for power users. But this Lenovo device, it's the Chromebook Plus 14. It sold out within hours at Lenovo.com. Best Buy has one, but I just need to. My buy finger is a little itchy, but it's the first Chromebook Plus with a MediaTek chip in it, and by all accounts, the MediaTek Companio Ultra chip that's in there, I've seen it referred to on some technical blogs as ridiculously overpowered, and it has like an 18-hour battery on it. So it's a very fast Chromebook, 14-inch monitor, 1080p screen. I touch or not, I don't really care about touch, but and it also has it's powerful enough that it can run Google AI on device, and so I'm really excited about that. But my guess is it's going to be a little while before those become part of the used Chromebook market, which is every nice Chromebook I've ever owned I bought vastly underpriced from the good folks at eBay, because they just don't know how to price Chromebooks, enterprise Chromebooks on eBay. But yeah, I want that Chromebook. So
I have a comment about laptops, but I'll respond to Peggy George in the chat. And hello, Peggy. We're so glad that you're here. Apple, I went to Macworld in 2007 when they announced the iPhone, and I think it was maybe the year after that or 2 years after that when Apple stopped going to Macworld. And Apple has had a real different approach towards vendor conferences ever since. So I don't know that it's shocking that they don't have a big presence on the floor, but usually they would have a presence and be making connections, kind of like I was describing at NC Ties, where they'd have their own area where they could do demos and then be able to make connections with folks. I am on a new 13-inch Apple M4 laptop that I picked up, and our school did staff-wide updates to M4 laptops, but went with the 14-inch, or I guess the 15-inch, because I'm on the 13-inch. Our school went with 15-inch, which are really nice.
Oh, interesting.
Of course, I don't have an admin password for that. So anyway, I'm using my own device tonight, and I really do enjoy being an innovative educator with EdTech, surprisingly. But the speed is fantastic. It is great. And I updated to some, 32-inch monitor here. If you really want a good laugh, you can go back, a couple months ago and see some of my Velcro attached camera snafus. Things were not doing so well. So are you on an M4 tonight, Jason? Are you on the But it's not the. Is it a laptop or is it
It is
the?
it well, I'm on both, but I'm on a yeah, I know. I'm just a ridiculous creature. So I
Well,
so
that Google Doc requires some GPUs,
it really
So.
does. Well, I'm also streaming West, so clearly I need the 48 gigs of RAM, but the yeah, this is by far the best laptop I've ever used by a fair bit. And the screen is amazing, the keyboard is amazing, the speed is amazing, the battery life is great, not amazing, but great. But that's good enough, yeah. And it will, I've literally had virtual machines running on here. The only mistake I made was I went with the 512 gigabyte drive and not the terabyte drive. That was a mistake. I do have I did discover the joys of Thunderbolt 4 drive bays. So I have a Thunderbolt 4 drive with a 2 terabyte stick sitting, or NVMe SSD drive sitting in it. It gets pretty good enough speed, and I just carry it in my little man tech purse. But um, um, and I've got some virtual machines on there if I need to run Windows or Linux for whatever reason, because I need to run Windows and Linux a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a ridiculous creature. Is my admission here.
I can't believe we haven't gotten off the ISTE Apple, and we're 45 minutes into the show. Hey, but I've got to ask you this: you're doing your keynote tomorrow for
Yeah.
the movie. How much is AI affecting your workflow process as a keynote speaker, presentation presenter, like a presentation preparer?
Well, I do generate some images, and but I always have Shutterstock up in the background. I am a student of Presentation Zen, and so I prefer large bold images over text-based slides, or there's rarely a bullet point. And if I do need a bullet point, something over the last 15 years, I've collected quite a few pretty solid presentation slides that demonstrate information without a plain bullet point. I sometimes use it as a thought partner, and we'll talk about kind of a piece here, to a point I want to make. I've given 10 or 20-minute practice runs to ChatGPT before, just had it listen to me. I don't write scripts for these, and so I'm doing it extemporaneously, and so it's a lot of times it's just working out phrases, or inserting a phrase in my head so that I'll go to that when I'm giving the presentation. I also record most of my presentations now and have it critique my presentation afterwards. And so,
Really?
yeah,
The transcript or the video?
I've done both. The transcript's better, just because.
Yeah.
Just because
That's crazy, though. That's
oh,
so smart, because we can do that for teaching too, right? Like I
oh
can
yeah,
record
yeah.
myself teaching
And
and say, "Give me feedback on this lesson," as if somebody was observing my lesson and just
yeah.
going to give me feedback.
It's so
Okay.
interesting to say that, Wes, because it's kind of what I'm going to be talking about during the presentation tomorrow. But one of the I love the concept of instructional coaching. In implementation, I don't think it's always
Sure.
it's a tough gig, right?
Yeah.
And I also say too that I've seen instances in the past, and I've had excellent friends who again aren't beyond feedback, but the low level of feedback they were getting with instructional coaches that didn't have very much classroom experience, or really know what to look for in truly outstanding classes. It's hard to find a good mentor, a good critic that can give you the stuff that you want to hear back about, right? But as it turns out, AI is wonderful at that. If you give it a copy of your class, and I don't know for sure if I would go through the rigmarole or not, but one of the things I would certainly be doing if I were in the classroom right now and teaching multiple sections of the same thing is I would record what we're doing, and at the end of the day create a some kind of directory structure, so I have that information so that I can say, did I cover all these things consistently across all classrooms? Did we get to all the tasks that I had hoped to across all classrooms? But I mean, I've given the transcript and asked about stumbles? Did I say anything stupid? Did I make an off-color comment that I should be more careful about? Or I've also Google AI Studio. You can just drag an MP4 onto there, and it will look at the video too. And so sometimes I'll just record my desktop with the slides going along, and how is my clicking along with the slides? Do the slides match what I was talking about? The slides have a good flow to them. What's your comments about that? I was up on a panel a couple of weeks ago about instructional design. Did I talk too much? Was I dominating the conversation? Did I invite others into it? That kind of stuff. Very valuable to me.
Yeah. And again, lends itself well to prompt engineering, right?
Yeah.
Because whatever kind of philosophy of pedagogy for teaching that you would want to apply, putting that into your prompt and then asking the AI to use that as a lens to look at what you did. It's so powerful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I'm gonna have to do that. Oh, and then I saw your Microsoft article. I am with ISTE and Minecraft education updates. I've just finished doing 3 different summer camps, and the last one was coding in Minecraft with middle schoolers. And that's super cool. There was a Florida group that was there in the creation lab using Minecraft, teaching middle schoolers AI concepts through engineering design challenges like rebuilding a village destroyed by zombies and coding AI agents to manage farms. Oh my gosh, that kind of stuff is really cool. If there's anybody out there who is connected or is a middle school teacher using Minecraft, I think I'm going to set that as a professional goal of mine. That this year I'd really like to connect to some other teachers and then do some meetups. I know that Ben Honeycutt, who is Kevin Honeycutt's son and is teaching in Colorado Springs, uses Minecraft, and he's like one person I need to get together with, and I've actually made contact with him. But as those of us who've been to ISTE know, it is a fire hose of announcements. Generally, maybe not from Apple this year, but from most companies, it's a fire hose of content, and can be overwhelming, but it can also be very invigorating and very relevant to what the kinds of things we're going to go do as teachers or administrators or whatever hats we wear.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, what else do you want to talk about?
As our update about ISTE lasts longer than actual ISTE. Let's see here. Well, I just will note one thing. We're about ready to get an onslaught of AI browsers. Today, Perplexity released Comet, which is their AI web browser, to take on Chrome and Edge. It's at the $200 a month level, so it's not quite available to the regular user yet, but I'm sure that we're filtered down. Apparently Chrome is working on, or not Chrome, but OpenAI is working on an AI browser. There's also dozens of agentic plugins now that work pretty darn well. I did get one working a couple weeks ago, but only for 24 hours before it broke again. There's literally hundreds of open source projects where
I'm using Dia right now. I learned about it through Mastodon, John Peterson, and it's an AI powered browser that is learning everything that I do with my consent in the browser. But I'm going to be very curious to see how I'm able to query it and how it learns what I'm doing. And are you still pretty enthusiastic about Perplexity? Because I've only very, very dabbled very shallow in a very shallow way into
Perplexity. I am, for the reason that they have their new interface that I think is called Perplexity Labs, but it can basically build little apps for you. And as an example, and so I should say, I'm not sure if I mentioned this or not on a previous podcast, but if you're interested in Perplexity Pro, I would suggest you go to eBay and type in Perplexity Pro. I don't really know where they came from, but there are dirt cheap year-long pro licenses you can get on eBay. You sometimes have to go through a VPN to another country to get it to activate, but once it's activated, it just works. So I did do that, and so I now have 11 months left of Perplexity Pro. But as an example, it will build like little web apps for you, and now Gemini can do that now too. In fact, it does a brilliant job of creating kind of web pages for you if you ask it to. But it's kind of like deep research, but it's better in that it will create a kind of an interactive report for you. So yeah, I like Perplexity. I think it's a pretty solid browser. I'm just not going to pay $200 a month for access to one of these advanced browsers. Tell me more about Dia.
Well, I've only been using it today, so but it does accept Chrome extensions. So I was visiting the YouTube link that you shared earlier, went to uBlock Origin for Chrome, click add, and then back to the YouTube video, no ads. So that seems interesting. So it apparently must be Chromium based. Yeah, it's privacy oriented, and I think that this is really important. On Monday, we did the monthly Media Education Lab, Media Ed Club. And in fact, I'll just do all of my Geeks of the Week right now because one of them is Dia, and the other one, I have three, but one of them was this. It was called Privacy, Power, and Platforms. I really would like help in figuring out how to help kids care about privacy, because I don't think that not only kids, but a lot of people don't seem to understand how important it is and how we should care about it. And so anyway, I'm interested not only in the AI features of Dia, but also the fact that maybe it's not the bloatware that Chrome is. Now, until I got my M4, when I was still on the M1 laptop, I was just getting all kinds of memory errors, and Chrome was using an obscene amount of memory on my laptop. So I'm interested in it for multiple reasons, but the privacy aspect of this is in the surveillance attention economy that we're in is definitely of interest as well. So I'll have to give you a little bit more of a report later, but so far so good. It's just you've just opened up something exciting.
I just downloaded Dia.
Oh yeah, that's what it does. It has a really cool intro actually when you just run it the first time. It will let you chat not only with whatever document you're in, but apparently it does sound a bit like Microsoft in terms of recording. We talked about how creepy it was that Microsoft was going to roll this thing out that was going to record everything that you do. And so, I need to read more like EFF and Privacy Advocate takes on this, because we are trusting these organizations with a lot of data. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why, we haven't seen students in schools, leap into the arms of AI companies, because AI companies want to scrape our data and use it all. And we need to protect student data. And there's laws about that. So.
And Wes, and I can't remember if I told you in our audience this or not, but ChatGPT Pro, you can now just share your iOS screen with it, and it will be able to see and talk to you about your iOS screen. We talked about that before.
So just on the iPhone, not the Mac, but the
iOS. Not the Mac yet, but also on the iPad, which is super interesting.
No, I did not know that.
I'm going to start up voice mode, and I'm going to say, hey, ChatGPT, here's talking to my friend Wes. Say hi to Wes.
Hey, Wes, nice to meet you. I hope you guys are having a great time. Let me know if there's anything fun you're up to, or if there's anything I can help with.
Hey, okay, I'm going to share my screen now with you. So I'm going to say share screen. I'm going to start broadcast.
All right, go for it. I'll let you know once I can see your screen, and then we can figure out whatever you need.
Okay, show me what's on my tell me what's on my screen, please.
All right, I can see your screen now. It looks like you've got your home screen open on your phone. I see a bunch of different apps like your calendar, your weather widget, and a few other things. Let me know what you need help with, or if there's something specific you want to show me.
Sure. What's the weather look like right now where I'm at?
It looks like your weather widget is showing that it's currently 90 degrees and probably pretty sunny. Definitely a one day. Let me know if you need more details or anything else.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. I've got to share this article. That is unbelievable. Gizmodo, June 30th. Mark Zuckerberg already knows your life. Now he wants his AI to run it. And this reminds me of this. The subtitle of this article, which is from June 30th, in a sweeping new plan, the Meta CEO is assembling a, quote, AI Avengers team to build not just a better chatbot, but a personalized intelligence that anticipates your needs, manages your schedule, and guides your decisions. Welcome to life as a service. So I will observe that the more we give permission to these AIs to observe our screens, to basically, it's like a mind meld, right? What was a Vulcan mind meld from Star Trek? You know, this is kind of what is now sort of possible if you want to sort of pour your mind into the AI. And so, oh my gosh, it's crazy that we are living in this moment. I'm going to wake my wife up because I think she's gone to bed. It's crazy we're living in this moment. Like that power, and Peggy just commented, you know, she sounds like a real person. I talk to, and I need to not refer to her as a her, but I talk to ChatGPT every day now on the iPhone app. And I actually did a lot of research this last week with ChatGPT on the Home Assistant that you talked about like a month ago, Jason,
Yep.
and how I can build this resiliency. I'm going to basically be building a parallel Internet of Things ecosystem that will coexist with my Google devices, but it will allow me, if internet goes down, to not be like hosed in being able to turn things on or off. So it's going to be more resilient. But, you know, it just, I find myself wanting that today, is being able to speak, you know, talk to my speaker and have that level of intelligence. And I don't know what the phrase and word for this is, but when I have been experiencing this high level, amazing ability to have these conversations and have this smart assistant, and then and I'm sure that Google, and I'm saying Google's name now, I'm sure that my smart speaker is listening right now, and it's not going to be offended because it's not that smart yet. It will be, but it's crazy we're living in this day.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the way it is. And, you know, when we mentioned earlier about there being these kind of new agentic browsers, the thing that we haven't really explored yet, and I did get it working very briefly with my Obsidian system, which is actually one of my geeks of the week, is that I've moved all my note-taking. I've gotten rid of all my paid-for note-taking apps and other free ones, and I do all my work in Obsidian now. It's a free and open source a personal knowledge management software.
Yes, that's right.
It does everything in Markdown, which is super cool, but it's got a very extensible plugin system. But my point is that you know, it took me 4 hours on a Saturday morning to do it, and it broke 2 weeks later. But it tells me this is available soon. But I had Claude able to go in and modify my Obsidian for me. So I said, go to these notes on this date and create a new summary of it on a new page. I said that literally with my voice to Claude, and then it happened. You know, it was done, you know, 90 seconds later, and it modified all the files for me.
So Peggy, if you're not talking with your ChatGPT app, I would recommend trying it. It's a wild experience, and the button is just there in the corner to be able to talk voice with it. This isn't a geek of the week, but I have 2 more coding projects on GitHub that I've coded. One's with Python, one's with HTML, one's RSS to RSS2 converter, because now I'm using Pinboard, which was one of my geeks of the week last week, to save and share social bookmarks. But whenever I have one that says podcast rec for podcast recommendation, I have Mastodon feed, Masto feed, you know, is grabbing that RSS, and it needed to be RSS 2.0. Anyway, so I just, you know, used AI to write a script to change that in Python, which there's no freaking way I would have done that without AI. So anyway, it auto posts to my Mastodon whenever I save a new social bookmark with that tag. And then Creative Commons, we talked about this, has updated to the 4.0 license. Flickr has updated to Creative Commons 4.0 licenses, and that broke Image Coder and also Alan Levine's little script that he had, but neither of those worked the way I wanted. So I just used AI and coded my own this last week, and it took about an hour. I'm going to propose at our school, and I do not expect this to be accepted because it takes longer to usually get courses approved. But I'm going to propose a coding with AI class, because I am 100% convinced that coding is forever changed with AI. I know that my life as a creator and as also a coder and hopefully a white hat script kiddie, it's changed forever, because I can now do things that I would have never been able to do by myself. And I'm not going to be paying somebody to create, a browser-based, Creative Commons license generator and formatter, but now I have it and it runs on my site. You can go to wesfryer.com/cc and you can see it. So,
wow. Well, Dr. Fryer, we could probably go 2 to 3 hours more. Is there anything else we have to cover this week?
Oh, geez. Can I even find my links? Yeah, let me say one other thing, and I could talk a long time about this. We need to be a part of reinventing the internet and making it better. Public infrastructure is important. Roads, water, power lines, these things are important. The internet is important, and the platforms that we use to share information. And those of us that have been doing this for a while know that there's been a lot of big changes that have happened in the last 20 years. So I want to commend to you a 2019 article and a 2015 podcast. This is Mike Masnick's post called "Protocols, Not Platforms: A Technological Approach to Free Speech." And it is basically kind of a rant, but it is about moving to the fediverse, moving to platforms that are not just controlled by the tech bros. And then on the Tech Dirt podcast, he has a conversation with Aaron Ross, and their conversation is called "Reclaiming the Internet." I'm now a part of a couple different organizations that are building community. I learned the other day, I guess, when I gave a speech for one of them, there were 8,000 people in attendance, which is kind of crazy. But we shouldn't just put all of our eggs in the baskets of the tech bros when it comes to building community, for instance, on Facebook. We need to utilize these platforms, but also I think this is incumbent upon folks who are early adapter innovators with technology. How can we help shape these platforms and these communities so that they are going to allow for robust connections, both across, state and international lines, but locally as well? And so anyway, I'm going to be writing more about that and working on that, but it is, podcasts are great. Recommending trusted voices are important. And there's folks doing really good work on that whole area. And I bet, Jason, that at the Moodle Moot tomorrow, you are probably going to, connect with some very passionate and geeky folks that are interested in that kind of thing. And so it would be curious what kinds of conversations people have about Bluesky or Mastodon or these federated opportunities that we can have to interact and collaborate and not necessarily be controlled. Because when I opened one of my Twitter feeds the other day, every single notification was a post from Elon Musk, and I don't even follow the guy. So, that's not the world I want to live in.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, got a little excited there.
I love it in any case. So,
All right.
well, Dr. Fryer, did you cover all your geeks of the week here?
Yep, I did.
Okay, great.
Except I have a blog post about the vibe coding. So if you're not familiar with that term, vibe coding, I heard that from Kevin Roos on the Hard Fork podcast. And so that just means using AI to code. So I wrote a little post myself about that experience. And I know there's probably not in society, certainly a majority of people don't code themselves. But for those of us that are teaching coding or dabbling with coding, if you're not coding with AI today, I really encourage you to do that because it's crazy what you could make.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Wes, because actually my Friday presentation at the Mountain Moot is called Vibe Crafting, and so it's been a long time coming, and I've had I think it'll turn into a thoughtful presentation by Friday. There's a lot left to do, but it's basically how do you move from like low level prompting to get images to adopting images to teach through semiotics. So we'll see if that gets if that turns into a fully fleshed out thought. I have pitched that particular presentation to a couple of other national conferences in the last couple months that I haven't heard back about yet. So I hope it turns into something wonderful and real. But yeah, so I just want to share two quick geeks of the week. I mentioned Obsidian before, but if you are using Evernote or Google Keep or Simple Notes, or heavens forbid you're using OneNote, I think Obsidian is a vastly superior platform to all of those. It does take a little more of fussing, but if you're into fussing, this is probably your piece. But I also want to mention something that I just started using a couple of weeks ago, and I'm surprised how quickly it's inserted itself into my kind of day-to-day life. But I didn't discover Raycast. It's been around for a while, but it is a Mac Spotlight alternative that actually is in beta on Windows that has so many more features than Spotlight does on the Mac, including being able to do things like search within documents or attach with plugins to things like ChatGPT or Claude. So if you're a Mac person, Raycast is the free version is more than functional enough to do some pretty amazing things.
Okay, and so just to make sure I understand, Obsidian is sort of your off-board brain where you're dumping your mind, and the Raycast is kind of like an AI-powered if this then that.
Raycast is like a kind of an alternative Spotlight on a Mac, although they did port it to PC. But through plugins, you can give it access to other data on your computer. So it's pretty cool.
All right. Wow.
Well, Dr. Fryer, we've said it all and then a little extra for fun. Where can people find you on the internets?
Hey, I'm at wesfryer.com, and I just updated the page to try to make it more visual and a little more clear with the multitude of projects that I tend to engage in. So that's me. How about you?
I am at aicentrist.com, and I'm mostly talking at I'm mostly chatting at LinkedIn. So this is the EdTech Situation Room. We're a once a week podcast, every other week sometimes when things are busy. We're on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard and Daylight Time, or sometime in the middle of the night UTC. We'd love to have you join us live, but if you can't, you can find us wherever finer podcasts are aggregated or on YouTube. We hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe, stay savvy, and we hope to see you next time on the EdTech Situation Room. Good night.
Good night, everybody.